And if you care enough about history, that you'll show us the stuff that's about him, and that you'll look out for contacts and resources that Ariel needs. Well, that's how these two play. When I came to Orlando, they immediately, how many of you met Biff Godfrey? We had him here before, the attorney, right? They're the ones that introduced me to Biff, and they went to Biff and said, get him connected in Orlando. We don't want him to go back to Seattle. They started working for me like we work for you. So anyway, and I tell everyone, Rachel is my adopted Jewish mother. She is also one of my mentors. I love her wonderful husband too. But these two are both two of the most inspiring people I know in this town. So you guys are so for coming here today.
Can we leave now?
No, it's all yours.
Okay, I'm Jim Shipley, and this is
Rachel Shipley.
And we're going to, the format we're going to try today is that I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, what I've done in life, because I didn't have to spend so many years raising my kids. And then she's going to tell you about hers, a little different format, and then I'm going to interview her. I learn things every time I do. So I'm going to try that. As far as I'm concerned, we, the two of us, we're marketers. People say, what do you do? We usually say, what do you need? That's kind of the way we approach life. In other words, our job is to find the best, most efficient way to market a given product or service, find the market for that product or service, and then find the most efficient way to get that product or service to that market. Identifying the market challenge all the time. All the years I've been involved in marketing, I've seen some huge changes and learned some of the proper approaches that make a product serviceable. And I'll tell you a couple of those stories, but that's not where I started. It's where I ended up. Where's the guy who's, the journalist in the back. I started out in life as a kid actor in radio. You got cars, right? Some of you know what a radio is then, okay? Back in the day, radio was it. We didn't have this thing called television or anything like it. And I wanted to be in radio. When I was 8 years old, I went on a stage for the first time in my life. And I was in a book week play. We had a big paper mache thing on the back of the stage. And I'll even remember my line. I'm looking for some fun. I wonder what's up that road. That road was a lot of things I never anticipated. I was a writer in high school when I went to college at Ohio State, Go Bucks. I had a partner, a friend, my roommate. We wrote a couple of musical shows together. Anybody know what the Hasty Pudding Club is? Hasty Pudding Club is the all-male acting club at Harvard. We had a thing like that at Ohio State. We wrote a musical. Our chorus line was the offensive line for the Ohio State football team. And they had an offensive guard, I'll never forget him, named Shag Thomas. He was 5'7", weighed 225 pounds. Now, 225 back in those days was a heavy linebacker. But we had him in a tutu. We had him doing a little dance across the stage. When I left Ohio State, after helping to put the first college TV station in the country on the air there, I then came back to Cleveland where my family was. They wanted me in the family business. I wanted to act. I went in the family business. We were what they called in those days distributors. We were RCA distributors. Everybody know what RCA is? No. RCA used to be an extremely famous communications company. The guy who founded the company, General David Sarnoff, is really the guy who founded radio, created the Federal Communications Commission, which allows you to watch television and play on your internet today. And as a distributor, our job was to sell television sets. Back in the day, when television went on the air at noon, off the air at 10, because we all knew nobody would watch television in the morning. Nobody would watch it after 10 o'clock at night. You got to get up in the morning and go to work. So you didn't watch it at night. So I was with that business until I decided this is not what I want to do. And I was 23 years old, so I ran away from home, joined the Coast Guard. Coast Guard, went to the advertising business, loved it because it was real marketing, what I wanted to do. got out of that, went back into my family business because they let me become the ad director and promotion man in the record business. And that's where I met her, and that's another story we'll interview her about. But just to keep things in order, I told you my TV story. I learned marketing in the 1950s, and I learned something that everybody knows who Steve Jobs is, right? What Steve Jobs articulated. He was asked, okay, what's the next big thing you're going to do that consumers want? And Jobs' answer was, they don't know what they want till I tell them. And to me, that's always been the fascinating part of marketing, that you could take a product or a service that was only and say, I can create that, and I'm going to tell that marketplace why they should want it, what it'll do for them, and I'll let them take it from there. I was at the Altamont Mall yesterday, and how long has the iPhone 6 been out? 2 weeks? 3, whatever. The line was around the corner. And the amazing thing to me about that line was that there were from people your age to people our age standing in that line. So Jobs' whole idea was, yeah, if you build it, they will come. And the whole idea that we have had, and I've had specifically my entire life, is that the market is there. The job of the market is to figure out where they're going. You people confuse us to death where you're going. Because to me, when you came to some place to raise money for something, you took something and you said, I got this. This is what it does. And you guys are all up here. And it takes a visionary to understand what visionary people are doing. And that's really where this country is going, of course, and we're delighted to see it. I guess the lesson that I have for everybody is you follow your dream. I came out of kid radio. I was in my folks' business. I was in the ad business. And all the time burning in the back of my brain was radio. So one day, I left the family business, and I said, honey, we're going back into radio. Had a lovely home out in the country in Ohio. Had 4 kids we were raising. Had to always make sure I got a raise when we needed one. And we said, we'll leave it. We're going to Florida because I found a radio station. Well, I didn't find a radio station. I found a license, which is what you have to have before you have a radio station. But with her help and some friends that I knew, I found a radio station. It was a little station up in Leesburg, Florida. I had no idea. I had no idea where Orlando was. And went up there, looked at that little radio station. I said, I can bring that into Orlando, create something. And we did. There was a time in the radio business we had what we called adult contemporary. It was kind of, I don't know where you'd put it today. It was anybody, see, the thing is that my late period in music is the 70s. So I know from the Eagles in America, Peter, Paul, and Mary, like that, and then you all built that radio station. And today it's called XL 106.7. And that was our dream. We followed it. We did that. Then a little AM station in Kissimmee came available. It was an AM station. So again, I looked at the market. I said, what does that market need? Who are those people? I found out it was the largest Hispanic population in Florida outside of Miami. And so then I started to say, okay, how many Hispanics are here in Orlando? 1978. Nobody knew. I went to the downtown diocese because I saw they had a Spanish sign out front. I asked the bishop. He said, we get about 300 people in on Sunday Mass, but I don't know how many there are. Finally, it was time for us to print our brochures. And the guy who was doing it said, okay. I said, 25,000. About 3 weeks after our brochure talking about the changing demographics in Orlando, and it said there are 25,000 Hispanics here. I said, wow, I was right. So I called the paper. I said, where'd you get that? He said, read it in a radio brochure. See, I guess the key is follow your dream, number one. I'm going to repeat this after we're done, just so you remember. Number two, don't be afraid to change the dream. You might have another one. Maybe this one is, maybe it's something else. Never be, and the third thing that we can tell you for sure, it's never too late. So remember that. Now, I am going to have to go to my script because I hardly know her. We've only been married 58 years. So I want to talk to you, Rachel, about Rachel. I know this about you. You really determined your future when you were 15 years old? 13. What did you do?
We lived in Philadelphia. I decided that I wanted to go to the Philadelphia High School for girls. My sister liked boys, so she took out. And I just took my mother and father. I said, I'm enrolling myself. After it was over, I told them where I was. And I'll never forget, I had no friends. In fact, that's right, no friends. I still don't have friends. She doesn't believe that. Because basically, I'm an introvert. But being in show business, I became an extrovert. So I have two sides of me. And I'll never forget, since I didn't have any friends at Girls High, I used to go to the roof garden, and I had my little milk and a little sandwich. And I looked at City Hall, and I said to myself, I'm different than anyone else is. I said, because I'm going to do something this way. I'm going to do something that's very important. I had no idea what I was talking about. But I said, I'm going to pursue my dream. What do I have a dream at the age of 13? But it became a reality.
Yeah, but then you formed a club, right?
Yes.
Because nobody would let you in a club.
Yes. My history teacher loved me. And I said, let's have a club. So she said, we don't have one. I said, well, we're going to have a history club, and I'm making myself president.
How many members did you have?
We had around 10.
Oh, good.
And then it grew to 15. And they said, who elected you? I said, I elected myself because it's my club. If you want something, don't wait for someone else to do it. Do it yourself.
Okay, now I know this, that you guys in those days found nothing about scholarships. College was totally out of sight. But your sister Ray, at the age of 19, already had a career. What did she do?
She was a performer. She was a very famous singer. There was music in her house. And she became she worked all the nightclubs, and she did many, many things.
Okay, so then you went to work as a billing clerk
That was fun.
at MGM, right? What about that? What was different about that?
Very different. First of all, since I never went to college, I had to do something because there was music in my family. So my sister and I, we decided to be a sister team, and we just decided that we were going to start. So I was waiting for my sister to get out of high school, and I saw a little ad in the Empire, and it said the billing clerk for MGM. That's interesting to me. That's Hollywood. So I applied for being a billing. I couldn't type. I couldn't take shit. I knew nothing. And I ended up being a billing clerk. Everyone liked me because I smelled like. I was very happy to just be there and making some money. And then the interesting thing, I told a few of you, and Pam knows very well, I believe this life is by shared. In Hebrew, it means meditating. And I believe that all of us have by shared in our dream. So anyway, getting back to the president of MGM, his secretary said, she said, I have to go to the hospital. I'm going to be away a month. Do you type? I said, of course I type. Do you take shorthand? Of course. She said, will you take my job? And I started laughing. I said, I can't. And I'll never forget, I went into the president's office, and he would dictate, and I had long hair, that's what it was. And everybody knew they liked me, because I spout a lot. And they all helped me. And then one morning, the president said, lunch. I said, fine. She said, because the talent scout from MGM is coming. I said, really? So I sat with them at lunch, didn't say one word. And then afterwards, I went back to my office, and the talent's guest, his name was Dudley Wilkins. And I said, Mr. Wilkins, you have a problem. So I laughed. He said, why? He said, we're going around the country looking for talented people. The most talented sister team in the country is right here. I said, my sister, myself, we're the Gordon sisters. I said, why don't you give us a screen test? He started to laugh. Well, lo and behold, I told my sister, and she was having a heart attack. Got a letter from NGM. We're giving you a screen test in New York. Had no idea what we're going to do. And we did the screen test. And MGM, because they're too young, the producers in MGM were the Skank brothers, Marvin Skank and Joe Skank. So I had no idea what we did for the test. We come into his office. Typical Hollywood. He had his feet on the desk, he was smoking a cigar, and he said, okay, kids, sit down. So he said, I'll give you two alternate looks. Your kids are not Judy Garland. You're not that talented. You're kind of cute. I said, but if you want to, we'll send you out to Hollywood. But we own you. I said, well, what do you mean we own you? Whatever you want to do. If your hair is going to be black, we'll have it. If you want to do that, everything you do is in our hands. I said, what's the alternative? Why the country? Go to all the nightclubs, get some experience. So I'll never forget. So I got up, heart attack, put my hands in my head. I said, this is thing, nobody owns us. We'll be back in 2 years, and you're going to make us famous. I couldn't believe my chutzpah. He said, who is this kid? Anyway, that's...
Chutzpah means nerve,
Well,
because
that's right.
you are of less persuasion than others. But, so then you went singing. You worked in the U.S. and where?
Yes, we worked the mountains of the Catskills.
They were-
And
And then you also went to Canada?
Yes, we sang.
Where in Canada?
Quebec.
French Canada.
French Canada.
Did you know French?
I love French because it's high school. I had this gorgeous French teacher, but she was lovely and she was typical Parisian, and she taught us songs and music and so forth. So that was my favorite language. So
All right, then came your big break, which was?
that was strange. Is a newspaper. It's called Variety. And anyone in show business knows Variety.
It's the Bible of show business.
So it so happened that I saw a little ad. Bob Merrill, you don't know the name, but he wrote Funny Girl and Goldie in the Window and so forth. And he, with his disc jockey, decided to manage some acts. So anyway, by that time, my sister and I were singing all over, never getting paid much, but we had experience. Money was not important. Experience is important. So anyway, you know, we don't know about the global. This is the
No, that's you went. You found this guy, Bob Merrill,
Yes.
and you went to him. What did you bring to him?
Well, when you're young in the early days, you go to New York, and then there's a building that had all of the composers and the writers and so forth. And it so happened we had some songs that we did under in Canada, little French songs, and we had a CD. We made it, and then so when we went to see Bob Merrill, we just marched into his office, and he said, told him who we were. And I said, we're very good. We're the best in the business. I had no idea what I was saying. I said, here's the CD. And when we heard this one song, it was, in French, it was Si mon main ne voulait bon say. It means doing the French can-can. And he said, brilliant businessman, so I said, yeah, I like that. I'm going to write the lyrics to that. And he said, you know, he said, I have two, I can put you with RCA or with Columbia. And it so happened, immediately, he said RCA. And luckily, you can tell them.
Yeah, I am, yes. So she signed, because Columbia wanted to put her on what they call development, where you take some of your stars today have been in that position where they went with a label, kept them in development. They said, I'm not getting any younger. I'm 22 years old already. So then they left that label to start out on their own and then became the big stars that they are today. She decided to go to RCA, which was fine. Meanwhile, I'm coming out of service, and I go to work for an ad agency in Cleveland. They hired me because my dad was the RCA distributor, and they knew I could get him as an account. So I was working there, and I got a call to come to my dad's office. So I went down, and he said, my friend Ed Bang, who was the sports editor of one of the Cleveland newspapers, we're having a 5th birthday. We're going to start a scholarship in journalism at Ohio State. And I'm putting on this big fundraising dinner, and I went to get a couple of top RCA acts to perform. So I went down to the record manager, and I said, Bernie, we got to get us a couple of artists that come do, disc jockey tours, stuff like that. He said, Jimmy, they don't do that. There's this thing called Las Vegas. There's this thing called television. They don't do tours anymore. I said, well, our job is on the line, Kitty. Go figure a solution. About 4 days later, he calls me, says, I got the solution. I go back to the office. He says, and he's got Billboard. Like Variety is the Bible for the show business overall. Billboard, I think it still is the Bible for the music business. Shows you all what the hit records are. So here was what they called pop records in those days. And he had it circled, number 12 with a bullet. Got me sisters with French Can-Can. And he showed me their headshot, 2 nice-looking girls. And he said, they're coming here on a disc jockey tour. I said, oh, thank God, we're safe. So go upstairs to my dad. I've got the Billboard magazine. I've got their photo. I said, Dad, solve the problem. He said, what do you got? I said, the Burton sisters, number 12 with a bullet. Here they are. He looked at me over his glasses. He says, who the hell are the Burton sisters? A year later was his daughter-in-law.
Oh my God.
That's my share.
That's my share. So anyway, you've always said that everything you do is in the nature of a project. Like what?
I love projects because projects have the beginning and middle and the end. And you put all your energies in the project. And that's the reason anything in my life. My show did the project. The 4 kids were the project. Going into business.
All right, so the first project you had after we got married was?
Having 4 kids.
No, not your first. Your first was dealt with the Cleveland Hearing and Speech Center.
Yes, I'll never forget. My mother.
Well, let me give you some quick background on this. I married this kid from show business, okay? Been on the road for 11 years. Never saw a kitchen. We moved into a lovely little 900-square-foot home in Shaker Heights, Ohio. Get home from our honeymoon. We come downstairs. I make breakfast because I'm up first. I said, okay, hon, I'm going to the office. I'll see you tonight. And I leave. She's in the house, all alone. No car for her to drive at the time. And she's supposed to make dinner. I came home that evening. I opened the door, and a billow of smoke comes out the front. So I said, what did you make for dinner? Well, here's 2 curled up pieces of beef that used to be steak. So I said, okay, let me cook. I said, neighbor next door, her mom was in the catering business. Let me bring Pam over and she'll teach you how to do this stuff. So she said, no, okay, I'll learn, but I got to have a project. So I said, well, there's this Cleveland Speech and Hearing Center. I think you'd be interested in that because I know your mother's hard of hearing and I know that interests you, right? So
I said, well, so I called the Speech and Hearing Center. I said, what do you need? He said, there's a new skin testing machine that they can test with babies, but it's going to be a lot of money. I said, how much money do you need? So he gave me a figure, and I said, well, I'm willing to pay that. But I went to my father, philanthropist. He gave all the high rollers in town can do. So he gave me a list, and the first one he said, he said, I understand that the newspaper, he just got off the plane and he lost his hearing. So, of course, I went to Louis Seltzer and I said, we're interested in exposed hearing center. I said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. You raise half the amount of the money, and I will give you, I'll give half of what you do. So anyway, I don't know who lost.
Well, then what he did, he wrote a column about it, that he lost his hearing, met this lady, and she was raising money for a speech and hearing center. And that launched it. She took her A-list, got the money, he matched it as he promised he would. And what did she build? What was built there?
It was my mother's
Which did what?
skin test machine.
They could take babies, and by testing their skin and seeing the reaction to it, know if they were going to have a hearing problem. Beyond just trying to slap and see if the kid turned or something, sometimes they would react to that, but their hearing wouldn't advance. And this center allowed them to do that.
At that time, it was $250,000 for that machine, which at that time, what it was. Wow. But one thing I always knew, that I never was afraid of anything. I always believed in myself. I said, if someone else can do it, I can do it. Even though half the time I wasn't qualified. It didn't matter. And I always told Pam, 3 things that you have to have for yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to trust yourself. And the most important thing, you have to respect yourself. If you have these 3 qualities, you can do anything. And it's amazing how it spreads with other people.
Second project, she said, okay, it's time we had kids. That's my question. So we had 4 and 14 months apart. So
because I always
we were in diapers for 2 years. We were in toddlers for 2 years. And then all I remember is even back in those days, it would be a trip to the shoe store every 6 weeks, and it was $70 for shoes. Now I guess that'd be about $450 every 6 weeks. But we raised those kids, and when they were little teenagers, that's when I said I wanted to go back into radio. So I said, I'm going to Orlando. And she said, okay, let's go. And so we came here, and as I told you, we built 106.7, the first Spanish radio station in the city. And then kids were going places into college, leaving home. And she and I took a walk on the beach, and I said, okay, you raised your 4 kids, you damn near raised me. Now what do you want to do? She said, well, what can I do? I said, well, you can do anything. Well, we're in Orlando. Here's your choices. You can go pick oranges. You can go into real estate and drive little blue-haired ladies around looking for a winter home. Or you can go into tourism. Now, you got to understand, tourism at the time meant a smaller Disney World. There was no Epcot. There was no SeaWorld. There was obviously no Universal. It was Disney. Our convention center was known as the Sheraton Twin Towers on International Drive, 25,000 square feet of exhibit space. So our convention business was limited. Today, we've got 1,750,000 square feet, second largest convention center in the country. So she said, okay, let's go into tourism. So again, looking at the market, what's needed? What isn't being sold? If your wife came home and said, if your husband came home and said to the wife, the convention's in Syracuse this year, she'd say, oh, have a wonderful time. If he came home and said the convention's in Orlando this year, she'd say, when do we leave? Problem being this, when they got here, Saturday they checked in, took the kids to the one park we had. Came back Sunday, he was at the golf tournament, and you had the kids around the pool. Monday, he's in meetings, you have the kids around the pool. And about that time, they start to go nuts. There was nothing for the wives. So she developed a company called
Future Planners.
And it designed programs for women, getting them off campus and out in to see the rest of Orlando.
I had things like when the men were at meetings, so I had something nuts to nutrition. So I had to create a lunch. nutrition lunch. And then also I had the art of packing. I created different types of things that interested women, that they wouldn't be going to Disney. And I had special things for the kids. And it worked. And
She took them on. She actually almost invented the lake tour in Winter Park. Anybody ever been on a lake tour in Winter Park? We'll do that for you in town. It's just, they take you by all these big mansions on the lakes in Winter Park. And she got a discount, believe it or not, from the merchants on Park Avenue.
It's just very hard to get in Fancy Park Avenue.
Highly successful business. And then one day, she got a call from
the USA in Washington.
No, you got a call from the Prime Minister's office in Israel. We went to Israel in 1968. That's another story. We're not going to bother you.
Israel and China. Don't forget Israel.
No, don't
and
worry.
China.
We'll get to China.
It's international.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
So, she got a call from the Prime. They were having the first Jerusalem Economic Conference with companies coming from all over the world. Could she come and organize it because she'd been in this tourist business, was basically the same concept. So the first thing we had to do was to sell the business, which we did, sold it to the guy, Wayne Hunsicker, who happened to be the guy that owned the Miami Dolphins at the time. He just wanted a business for his daughter, so they bought the business. And she left me for a year to go to Israel.
Well, I always ask permission. He knows I'll go anyway, but I always, it makes him not sure. He feels so good about it. Because he always knows. It's never selfish. There's always a reason why I'm doing something.
Yeah, so she went to Israel, ran a very successful conference. I lived without her for a year. And the interesting thing, at the same time, all the kids left home. So I was in this big house out Goldenrod, which days was the end of the world. And I was there all alone for a year. She came home. Oh, thank God, we get back to a normal life. And 6 weeks later.
Well, when I had leisure planners, I worked with the USIA in Washington. When they had guest.
What are they?
United States Information Agency, it's part of the State Department.
Yeah.
They coordinate if a visitor comes here, not necessarily in another government, but under the auspices of a foreign government. U.S. One part of their job, besides running foreign radio programs, is to make sure that those people are well taken care of in the United States. Well, they go to Washington because they got to see what happens there. They usually do either New York or San Francisco. Then, of course, they come to Orlando because they want to go to the parks. So we always got a bunch of people. 1985, she got a call from USIA.
Yeah, and they said, now this is old China. It's not the China of today. We have 3 visitors coming from the mainland, and we don't have a budget. But I said, well, who are they? The mayor of Shanghai, the one who did the long march with Mao Zedong, and the head of the Red Flag newspaper. And they said, I said, don't worry, I'll handle it. Because I knew everybody in Orlando. I got comfortable with everything I did. And they came with an interpreter. And of course, they didn't speak English. And Jim and I gave them a weekend. We took them to the parks. We took them everywhere. And therefore, when we took them to the airport, the interpreter said, Mrs. Shipley, the mayor of Shipley, she comes tomorrow to teach us tourism. I started to laugh. I said, I just came back from Israel. That's my husband for 1 year. If I leave one more day, he's going to divorce me. I said, but send me a ticket in the mail in the summer. And you can do an economy. It's not going to cost much money. Economy class, and I'll come.
No, and enroll me.
And enroll me in the best language institute in Beijing. I was clueless. What I know about China. But as I told Pam, when I knew I was going, what I happened, I met the librarian here, who was from Taiwan, Dr. Lee. And I took 2 weeks. And he gave me a Chinese name, so I knew a little bit about that. So, lo and behold,
the ticket shows up. She says it'll never come. You don't have to worry.
He said, the Chinese don't give ice in the winter time. You're not getting a ticket. I'm taking away on it. Kendra, I said, this has always been my concept. I always focus on something. I always just don't look at today or yesterday. It's tomorrow. I said, you know, I'm going to go into international trade. I said, Israel's got the brains, China's got the people, and we had the know-how. Somehow we're going to go into some sort of company. And then what happened to your company? You broke up your partnership.
Well, yeah, when she got back from China, and
How long were you in China?
7 months she lived there, and tell them how you live.
I lived in a compound.
And you had already raised kids. You were not a 20-year-old.
I'm not a kid, for goodness sake.
Right.
But
The people she roomed with in this place in Beijing were younger than her children. And she was in a compound. What that means, guys, is no Western commodes, trenches.
no heat in the wintertime. And I would
How
not.
did you speak? I mean, how did you do the language?
What?
What was the language thing?
Well, we had a few that did. We had a teacher that was trying to teach us Chinese, so that helped a little bit. And I had maybe a month or so with Dr. Lee, and I had some idea. At least I had a Chinese name that was like something.
What was your diet there?
Well, oodles and noodles. Because I wouldn't even, like I told you, don't even the commissary. They don't wash their vegetables and you'll be sick. So I used to get oodles and noodles, which was fine. A little bit of hot water. Then I used to go to the marketplace and I got bread. I lived on bread and oodles and noodles. And nothing ever tastes as good, let me tell you, when I came back here.
Well, she came back, said, I want to go into international trade. I said, wonderful. Meanwhile, I had a partner up in Boston, Massachusetts, and this is something for history for you guys again. A lot of you are getting into the communications business, which today is phones and stuff like that. Back in the day, believe it or not, they used to charge for phone calls by the minute. And we had a company that we formed that gave people a great deal on minutes, and we were actually going to lease them a computer, which was brand new, and we were going to build them a website. Let me tell you what a website was. It was what I guess today you call it brochureware today, or don't you even call it that anymore. It was just a template that puts your business on, because nobody else had, nobody knew what to do. But we were doing very well with it. And I watched a commercial one night, and a movie actress went on and dropped a pin and said, you can hear a pin drop because our acoustics are so great, and we're going to charge 10 cents a minute. So I called my partner in Boston. I said, we just became a commodity. Let's get out of the business. So I went up to him and I said, you know, I feel like the first mate on the Titanic. I mean, I believe you, Captain, but I really think there are icebergs out there. So I sold him my end of the business. I came home and I said to her, well, I don't know who's going to hire me at my age. And she said,
I'll hire you. I said, you only give me 10 hours a week. You don't do what I do, and I don't do what you do. Let's form a marketing company. Let's go into trade.
So we have a company called Trading Wise Incorporated. We're an international marketing company. As I told Brandon, I said, people say, what do you do? I said, what do you need? Because we source product. Our basic model, we have somebody on the ground overseas, a native of that country, India, Vietnam at this time, Brazil, a couple of others. So that I've got somebody there, and our model is to take American products and services and get them licensed overseas. Enterprise Florida and the import-export people love us because it's all intellectual property coming back. So it's great. There's very little cost going out. We've had this company now for about 25 years almost, and we're still doing it. And in the course of that, because of our Chinese experience, when the Economic Development Commission from Orlando wanted to take their first trade mission to China, they asked us to organize it. So we hosted the very first trip to China in 1996. Yeah.
Yes.
The first one to China. We took a bunch of businessmen, lawyers, and politicians to China with us. It was very successful, so we went back in 1998 for the second one. And the plane on the way home, we had Linda Chapin, who was the first mayor of Orange County, with us. And we got along so well, we said, you know, we ought to get together for lunch, something. So we got together for a reunion. It was great. So then we started meeting at a small hotel back room. We kept growing. We didn't even have a name for this thing, just the people from the trip getting together, bringing guests. We got invited down to Sun Trust. By then, we were getting about 30 people. So, God, we better put a name on this thing. We called it the International Roundtable. It's now in its 18th year. Because it's not a membership organization, I guess we just keep growing. We now meet at the University Club downtown on the first Thursday of every month. Our speaker last month was a guy named Johnny Rivers. Johnny Rivers. I don't know if you know who he is, but Google him. It's an amazing story.
He's coming home.
Is he really?
He's your follow-up.
Don't miss it.
He is.
His story,
amazing.
and he's an incredible guy, but his story is just fantastic. This month we've got Mayor Teresa Jacobs, Mayor of Orange County, and then we have for business. We have international people, and so we've been doing that for 18 years.
And we have a database of over 1,200. So anyone in this, that's how Pam met his country. He came to the round table the first time. And
so now when we meet people, and they, you know, we talk about it, and I got a note from my daughter yesterday. We had all of our kids right here forever, like, I mean, they were all over us. And then one year thing, they all left and they've never come back. We have a daughter in Jerusalem. We have a son in New Jersey, really New York. He's in one of those little bedroom communities. But not that. The daughter in Jerusalem did Save the World when she was 10. She's still doing it. She runs 3 large nonprofits over there. Our son, who has a skincare business in New Jersey, it's called hydroxytone. Your mom would know about it. Takes the bags out from under the eyes of older people. We have a daughter in Los Angeles. She's a behavioral psychologist working with autistic children. We have a son in New Orleans who's in the music business. So they all went away and they all did very well. And so we say to them, don't visit us, we'll come see you. They're 4 pretty neat cities. But one thing, we are grandparents, obviously, we've got 5 grandchildren. It's never too late, ever. It's never too late to follow your dream. You guys are young at it. Start your dream. Don't be afraid of it. It's scary, but don't be afraid of it. It turns out I changed when I was 45 years old. I left my dad's business, went into the radio business down here. It's never too late. Make friends. Make friends. Your network is your safety. Make friends.
Whatever you do, it's to have a database. Whoever you meet, have a card. Because you never know when you're going to meet and who you're going to meet and what you're going to do. And maybe you meet someone that will be the future. But you're young enough, and all of you, I'm looking at all your beautiful people. You're happy people, and you're so smart. And I see, there's a word in Hebrew, kvel. You're all proud of each other. We were demonstrating at the state, and two of the friends said, what is that? You all help each other. And of course, you have the worst person in the world to put you together, Pam Hudson. And we're very lucky to get that lady. She's enough to drive you crazy, but she gets it done. And she does it with a
That's
smile.
us. Now it's your turn. We did take some questions.
Oh, yeah.
We got some time. If we told you everything, great. We can go home early and have lunch. But yeah, if you got any questions, we'd love to hear them. Tell us about yourselves. That's cool. Yeah.
What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self really the same thing I said now because it took me this long to learn it, and that is don't get stuck. That pursue your dream. If it doesn't work, okay, so you did it, you pursued it. And then therefore don't be afraid to switch to whatever the next dream might be. Don't get, you know, when we moved to Cleveland, and I was still Ohio State, we moved to Cleveland. Cleveland was a steel town and an auto town. We had big steel plants. We were the second largest automotive manufacturer in the country, engines and batteries up to Detroit. And I would say that probably 80% of that population, their dad was in the union, their dad worked at the Republic or the United or some other steel company, or they worked at the Lincoln Engine Motor Plant or Lincoln Electric. So they were in the union, their kid would get out of high school, they say you come in the union as an apprentice, you become a journeyman, then you become a member, and you're set for life. Don't worry about it, you got a job. And sure enough, there were these little bungalows, especially in the west side of Cleveland. There was a car, a truck, and a boat in front of most of them, and that was their life. And then they would retire in their late 50s or early 60s and die in 2 years, because they'd just be sitting on a porch somewhere. I realized that, okay, that's not going to be forever, and sure enough, it turned out to be. We used to say in Cleveland, the skies are red, times are good.
Jim, I think this young man had a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, thanks, yes, for coming and sharing your really inspiring story. Rachel, I wanted to ask you. I enjoyed really hearing about your concept of projects and how you're going to take on each test or each opportunity as its own isolated project. So I was going to ask you if you consider you still have projects, right?
Or I have a new one out. I'm a life coach. And look, and this is funny.
Okay, I got to tell this. When we have our round table, and after the round table, I get all the cards and I say, here, you're good at this. Go find out what these people do. So she makes a call. She says, come have a cup of coffee. She comes home from that. I say, hey, what do they do? Can we help? She says, I don't know, but I found out all about their personal life. So we're talking to our daughter, Robin, behavioral psychology. Mom, will you stop giving it away? You move to LA and do this stuff, you'll make $1 million. So she said, well, I'm not moving, but okay. So again, we did our research. I did the marketing. I said, what is it? Well, we said personal counselor. Well, it's really life coach. Okay. So I go online and I see about life coaching, and I talked to a couple of people, and they said, you know the way you make money at that? You run a school to teach people how to be a life coach, because she already knows. So I looked on board and I saw that online, I saw that these people who taught life coaching, when you graduated, having paid $1,400 or whatever, you got initials after your name. I said, babe, you did it already. You don't need initials after your name. You got them already. She said, I do. What are they? I said, you're Rachel Shipley, EJM. What's that? I said, experienced Jewish mother. Everybody needs a Jewish mother. So that's what you are. And that's what she does. And that's her new project. She's now a life coach.
And it's amazing. Talking to our clients, I learned so much more about myself than I know about them. It's all about people. Take any project you want, doesn't matter. But be out there. And don't worry about it. Because so somebody knows more about what's the big deal. You try something else.
Yeah, Teresa.
So could you share with us, or both of you, maybe one of your major obstacles that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome that obstacle?
That's interesting. You can take that.
I'll take it from you. Had your major obstacle was just breaking out. You came from this lovely family, poor but poverty-stricken, and you went out in the world with your sister, right?
Yeah.
And that was a huge object to overcome because they were a sister team. They were women, white business. And she overcame it just by having chutzpah. It's a great word to learn. It means guts. And that's what she had. My biggest obstacle to overcome was that I was in a cocoon. That as long as my mother, God bless her, may she rest in ever peace, which she never gave us here on earth. She just wanted two things about her kids: safe and nice, and clean. Oh God, clean. And that was it. And I kept trying to break out of that mold. The biggest obstacle I had was trying to remind myself what my dream was and then going in. That was the biggest obstacle. You fall into a comfort zone. Look, you live in the greatest country in the world, the most opportunities in the world. There are safe places in what this world is, even today. it's so easy to fall into it, especially if the folks have a lot of money and you end up living in the basement for a few years after you leave college. Don't abandon the dream. Whatever that obstacle is, like I say, overcome it. And if it doesn't work, so what? Especially starting at your age. So what? Go do the next one. And then the next one.
Never learn from your successes. You learn from your failures. That's the truth.
Yeah.
When you ended up going into your own business, that's you say you don't want to go back into business.
They were not very happy at first.
Well, my father said, why did I know about this? I said, if you haven't realized it for the past 10 years, you've never gone. So I left, and this was interesting. I got into the ad business. It was very difficult as a client, and it wasn't enough to feed this large family I had. I had working my way up to find other clients against established businesses in the market. I was in it about 3 months, and he came to me and he said, okay, come back, here's what I'll give you if you come back and help me. Well, that was the key. He knew that psychologically helped me. I had to take a very deep breath and say, Dad, I did that for a number of years. I've been doing this for a number of days. Not now. And he understood. And here's the interesting thing. You went to her first. And you said,
He, first time he asked me to lunch, right? He said, you can change his mind. Because I said, oh yeah, they'll say you don't want to go. One thing from my mother, you follow your husband. Wherever he goes, you go. That's what the marriage is about. And I'm sorry, Dad, he was not very happy about it. But what the most important one in my life, I love my 4 kids, I love my script, but the most important thing is my husband. That's the reason he puts up with me. He needs a medal. He married me for so many years. But because we listen to each other, we respect each other, and we trust each other.
How many, anybody in here married? Cool. Yeah. No, but the point is this. Remember this about a marriage. It's a partnership. There shouldn't be, and people just say, well, it's 50-50. I said, no, it's 100-100. You never look where midfield is. You go all the way, and they go all the way. That's the only way it's going to work. So when you find that person that really turns you on, forget him, because that's not the one that's going to be your best partner. Find the one that you've got the most in common with, has a dream kind of like yours, and is willing to get on the journey. And that's what it is. If I had one thing to say to anybody, it would be this. I used to coach marathons. I ran a lot of marathons. My last being Boston at the age of 72, by the way, but I did finish Boston. But I used to coach marathons. And I would tell my marathon group, many of them were first-time marathoners. Every year I would say the same thing. I'd say, look, if you're going to run a marathon, I promise you that. At the end of this period, you will run 26.2 miles. You will finish. But that's not the point. It's the journey. Enjoy the journey. Because that's what will stay with you for the rest of your life. And that's where you are now. Whatever you're doing, whatever your dreams are, enjoy the journey. If you're not, then you're not doing a good thing. Change it. Change it now. But enjoy the journey. Life is a journey. You don't know how long it's going to be. According to stats, you guys are going to live to about 110, 150. So be sure you enjoy the journey. It's going to be a long. Okay, that's us, baby. Come on in the back.
So when you guys are working on projects together, career-related projects, work projects, how do you maintain the same kind of respect and kindness in your marriage? How do you draw those boundaries? What does that look like?
First place, there are no boundaries. The second thing is you never go to bed mad. Whatever it is, she speaks fluent Yiddish. There's a word in Yiddish is called Kleinigkeit. Fat, little stuff, doesn't matter. And whatever the problem is, she says, Kleinigkeit. You got your health, I got my health, we can do this. So you come to that understanding. And it doesn't come right away. It doesn't come after the honeymoon. It builds over the years. And you gotta have that understanding, and it's totally open. Totally open. You're willing to share anything, and he's willing to share. And you keep it that way. It's gotta be your best friend.
And you cannot be selfish. That's the most important. It isn't always about the me. If you have a relationship, it's what your partner wants. And that's what it's all about. Life isn't easy, kids. It's tough. We wouldn't want it to be easy. When things are hard, that's character building. And that's your learning. You make a mistake, it's good to make a mistake. But the one thing you have to always say is, I'm sorry. Man, I'm sorry. But it's not right to say I'm sorry. And it's amazing what that will do for a woman. I'm sorry. How many of you have fiancés and boyfriends and girlfriends? Relationship. It takes time to build a relationship, right? When something is wrong. You say, I'm sorry. You listen. It comes to three things. Respect each other, believe in each other, and trust yourself. Those are three things. Anything in life, whether it's in business or personal. And be there for each other, whether you like it or not. Sometimes it's very hard, believe it or not.
Okay, one of the things, wow, I think we should have him back on a dating series. That he would have how to have a 58-year successful marriage. We would like pass the school out, right? Like nobody does about Rachel. But Rachel, I coach with Rachel sometimes. Yeah. And one of the things she's reminding me is to do nice things for myself, right? She has this mantra. What have you done nice for yourself today? And like that question, like when she first asked me it, I looked at her like she was like ridiculous. Like, I have no time to be nice to myself. I am busy with the revolution, and I have a lot of people to be nice to. So anyway, one of the things I know about you is one of the things that she does nice for herself sometimes.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. I buy myself a little chocolate bar because, not a big one, but because it's amazing. It makes you feel good, it gives you energy. But you're doing something for yourself. It doesn't really matter what it is. And mine is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now take a
She'll sit there with music on and just sit. It's like Zen. She's into that zone.
You need alone time with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be able to live with yourself and be alone. And you take something like whether it's a latte or a Starbucks, but something that gives you a little energy, of course. But you say, I deserve it. I deserve it. Why shouldn't I have it? And it's amazing. When you do that, there's always a smile on your face. A smile begets a smile. A frown begets a frown. It's so true. It's a little thing. And there's a whole, and your kids are so, so lucky to be here. And it hasn't been easy for your family, whatever. I'm sure your parents or mine would never had the opportunity. But all I can say is make the most of what you've got. Appreciate everything. And do something for yourself every day. Thank you for my
So if you want any more from them, your question will be what you can do for them. And John?
Yes. Okay, so after every seminar, we like to take a group photo at the front of the room. But if you would like to get signed up like UCF starters, please see myself or someone else that works here. Also, if you'd like to get in with coaching and do an appointment, you can see Shakira over here. Or over here. Yeah, Shakira or Shakira. So let's all stand and head to the front of the room.
Okay, and guys in the front, if you'll stack the chairs on the second row, that'll give everybody room to get up quick for a picture. And Rachel and Jim, you're going to be in the middle of the picture.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.